When does a handle make a difference? Hi everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, whimsically known as Glenda the Good Stitch. Well, yes, the handle definitely makes a difference on the SureFit Designs line drafter. Call it a quilting, crafting, and garment seamstress ruler. It is fabulous. It's made out of a rigid acrylic. It's an 1/8 inch thick, so it gives us a great edge for drawing lines and for also making our cuts. But what's the benefit of this handle? Well, number one, it's permanently attached. It means that you don't have to use those big suction cup handles that are obtrusive to the vision, as well as they can sometimes release just when you don't want them to. Another benefit of this handle is that it's going to keep your fingers out of the way when you're making your cuts. I'm sure a lot of you have nicked fingernails or actual fingers with your rotary cutters. Not long ago, a lady said to me that she had arthritis in her hands, and she actually had a very small hand. She said this handle is just perfect for her to grip the ruler so that she can hold it on her fabric and on her patterns to get her a really nice grip when she is making the cuts. Let's take a look at version 2.0 of the SureFit Designs line drafter. Inside the outer edge there, you're going to see a long dashed pink line. That pink line designates the 5/8 inch seam allowances, which is 16 millimeters. You're also going to see that long pink line on the other edge of the line drafter. And on this short end, you will get the seam allowance that is 3/8 of an inch wide, which is 10 millimeters. And on this short end, you're going to get the pink line that's the seam allowance for 1/2 inch wide seam allowances, which is 13 millimeters. Then these dominant black lines that are running horizontally and vertically on the line drafter, those are the inch designations or inch increments. Within those inch increments, you're going to see a long dash and a dot, a long dash and a dot. And this long dash actually spans the 1 inch increment, and it is a 1/2 an inch wide. So that means that that end of that 1/2 inch marking is 1/4 of an inch on this side and on that side. So if you need to be measuring from a short end, you can always visually line up the edge of the long dash for the 1/4 inch designation, and the little dot right there is the 1/2 inch. And then of course going in this direction, that's 1/4 inch and 3/4 inch. And this thinner black line right here, that's the 1/2 inch designation. So there's lots of benefits of the interior lines here, as well as you're going to see the 3 diagonal lines here, which represent the 45-degree angle or the true bias. And I'll be showing you how to make those cuts. So now let's take a look at the actual practical application of the line drafter in a few little examples. In this first example, I'm going to use the SureFit Designs skirt front pattern. And you can see that I've already done a little bit of the drawing in it. I have done the long center front marking like this. And because the line drafter is 24 inches long, I get a nice clear run at making that line. Then I'm going to slide over and line up the 2 inch designation with the center front and draw in the straight of grain marking. And you'll notice that I have already drawn a few of these other curves, and that of course was done with the original essential tool called the SureFit Designing Stylus, and it has on it all the curves of your body. So I just did a slight curve at the waist edge like this, and I used the hip curvature on the stylus to draw that hip curvature on the pattern. And now I need to connect from the low hip series of dots over to the hemline, and so I'll just bring the line drafter into play. And again, the longer your skirt, the greater it is to use this line drafter, because this line drafter is 24 inches long. Now, so many of you know that the SureFit Designs patterns are stripped down patterns, and that means that they don't have any seam allowances on them. So in order to cut it out and sew it together without losing any of the required ease, in come the designing stylus and the line drafter with our 5/8 inch seam allowance designations. On the designing stylus, we have slots here that are at 5/8 of an inch. So I'll just line those slots up with the previous hip curve that I made, and it would look like that. And then I'll draw on the outer edge, adding in the 5/8 inch seam allowance. And then to do this straight line, I'm just going to slide the line drafter over, line up that pink line, which is 5/8 of an inch, and then I am going to add in the 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way down the edge of the skirt. And of course, you would also put in the curved stylus, or use the curved stylus at the top to add in the seam allowances in that position. Okay, let's go on and take a look at a bodice example. And I'll just remove this skirt and so that we can see the bodice front. Now, this I've also done some pre-drawing in. However, I did not do the center front line, so I'll use the line drafter to do that as well. And sliding over that 2 inch, line it up nice and parallel, and draw in the straight of grain marking. And then, of course, the neck curvature, because it was a curve, was done with the designing stylus. And then the shoulder line, a straight edge, could be done with the line drafter. And then the armhole was done with the arm side curve on the designing stylus. And then, of course, I built the side seam as well. Now, one of the things that you need to mark on your pattern is this crisscross marking, which is the apex on your body. And so you need to have measured from your shoulder to your apex, and then from apex to apex. And then when you divide that distance in half, because you're working on half a pattern, you make a crisscross marking there. And of course, this length coming down designates the level of your apex. Now, it's really important to get this waist fitting dart underneath your apex and to have it totally parallel to the center front line. And so with your half apex width measurement, in this case it's 4 1/4, the next thing I want to do is draw a very light pencil line coming down that is totally parallel to the center front. And the reason I want to do that is because I am now going to use this other template called the waist darts template, and I'm going to use template number 1, or dart number 1, that says bodice front dart. And I'm going to take this and line the arrowhead up on that crisscross marking. But what can so easily happen is that this template can really go wonky on you when you're lining it up on the bodice pattern. You want this dart to be totally parallel to the center front marking. So in come the line drafter. I'm going to find the 4 1/4 mark, which is right there. And that's, of course, one of those long dash and dot lines. And I'm going to line it right up with the cross mark for the apex. And then I will make a very light pencil line coming down. And that's going to tell me that that's the center of the dart. Then you'll take this template, the waist darts template, and you just line it up so that the pencil line goes right down through the center of that dart, and draw in the tip of the dart. Then, depending on how long or short you are in the torso, you may have needed to shift this template up or down until it lines up with your waist level and waist guideline. And in this example, I've just made it match with that of the master pattern. And then you would draw in the tail of the dart, and then you take that away and you connect the side edges of the dart in this fashion. And now you've got the perfectly shaped dart underneath your bust level, and you know it is totally parallel to the center front marking on the bodice pattern. And of course, the last thing you would do to finish off the pattern at the bodice waist edge is use your designing stylus. It's just a slightly curved line to finish off that waist edge. Now we'll take a look at some fabric cutting. Many garment seamstresses are also quilters, and what they tell me is that they need two very important things. Number one, measuring accuracy, and number two, stability in the tool that they're using. Well, measuring accurately, we've got that hands down because of all the line designations that are on version 2.0 of the Line Drafter. And stability, well, that's built in with the permanently attached handle. And of course, when you get your Line Drafter lined up with where you want to cut, you've got that nice firm edge to cut against to make the perfect cuts on your fabric. Then, if you want to do a 45-degree angle, what you're going to do is take the Line Drafter and you take the 45-degree lines and you line that up with the straight edge on the fabric, and that means that this long edge on the Line Drafter is now going to give you the 45-degree angle. So we cut once, and now if you want to make some bias strips or trim, let's say you want them 1.25 inches wide, use the long dash and dot, which is at the 1/4 inch marking, line it up to the cut edge, and make another cut. And keep on going until you have made enough strips for your perfect true bias, which is great for the bias binding that we might be making for our garments. So you can see that whether you're a quilter, a crafter, or a garment seamstress, that this new innovative tool from Sure-Fit Designs, the Line Drafter, is really going to be a tool that's going to be beneficial to you. And now I'd like to invite you to join our worldwide community of Sure-Fit Designs users. You can do that in 3 easy steps. Number 1, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you're going to find over 200 free educational videos on fitting, designing, and sewing. And you can just use the like and subscribe buttons underneath this video. Number 2, make sure you join the Sure-Fit Designs newsletter, and that you can do at the bottom of any page on the Sure-Fit Designs website. That's www.surefitdesigns.com. And we also have an extremely active Facebook group. Go to facebook.com/groups/Sure-Fit Designs. Over 5,000 users are working with Sure-Fit Designs, sharing their ideas and jumping in with all kinds of tips and techniques. I know you're really going to benefit from joining that group. Thanks so much for watching.